So, very quick demo here about how we use SDD in the console with LLM and MCP. First, I had a big training on my LLM to make it capable of doing all these things, and of course it took time, then it will not go out of the box like that. But for my client, for SDD client, they will be able to use it immediately. Then, for example, I just took GitHub repository, which is open and which is talking about genome, because I'm interested on the topic for many reasons. And I will then tell him to clone the repository. Oh, first I have to start the codex because I didn't start the codex. Then, sorry, my mistake. Codex, then I will skip the update. And codex here is connected to many MCP, as you can see. Then the MCP are things that are helping me to connect to application and specifically to SDD. Then I will use again this this repository, and I will say clone this to a new repo on this VM, then create the SDD project and do the init SDD. Then it will first be cloned, then it will be added to SDD, then spec-driven development platform to be able to manage the project. And from that, what I want is to prove how we can manage a project that I know nothing about. And honestly, I'm not developer in Python. I'm developer in C# another language, but not in Python. Then I find interesting to see how we can move with unknown territory. I like the challenge, and it's live. Then its first step is that he cloned and everything, and he started the init SDD process, and the bootstrap SDD project will create some file like architecture.md and welcome.md and everything that can describe the project correctly to me to have a first step of context. Then first will be an analysis. It's reading now every PI files, every step of the project, and then we will try to go to retro engineering of the requirement to understand what's in this project, because that's can be a legacy project, that can be an open source project, that can be the project that you are actually working on. And I want to, yeah, you see architecture.md was added. I will not even read it for the moment. I know that it's relevant, and I will prepare my next prompt that will be retro engineer requirements and specification from this project. So we will have a first step to integrate the project, and then the next step will be to get, that's the repository that I just discovered by having a search on genome comparison. And now I will go to specs-development.com. I will log this one. And then on the project side, it's not yet created, I think. Take a little more time. Maybe I have to refresh the cache. It happens. Give me just a second. It's not magic. Let me just check here. Yeah, now I have it. Then there is an empty project, no requirement, no specification, no issue, nothing, no test protocol, no TCF, of course, nothing. And we want to be able to leverage this project and set up some things. Then I will already say that I want to commit on each change, that I will have every process to require approval of the requirement to implement some code and some change. Then I will update all the options. This option should be in settings, but it's not really ready at the UI stage, but that make the work. Okay. Then it's processing the thing. He discovered many information. He's making rationale, and that's the architecture view. Then that's the explanation, retro engineer explanation of what is the architecture. It's an SDD document that you can completely use to validate the structure. So now it's already starting to use search project context, because we start with a context of what we have now, the architecture, the code base, everything we have, and the project specification, which is empty at the moment. And we will look at the project items, and no existing requirements are present in the SDD project. And that's the very root of the process. And then when we will arrive here, after the first step, that could take a little time, then maybe I can pause the recording and come back when it's done. You will have the time to understand how much time it took in reality. Then finally, the pause was not long because I had a very big add intent with instructions that SDD knows that he had to send to itself by a prepared prompt that does a very good job. And he started to find for product items, to list project specification, and so on, and adding intent and everything, that trying to understand exactly what the project is doing. And there is a huge process of semantic intelligence on this thing. And now when we go to the project and we refresh cache, we have already some repositories that are functional and non-functional, and we know that what the program is doing. And let's remind that at the beginning we have no architecture document, we have no requirements, we just have the source code. That's very interesting for me to start from that. And then let's take it, I'm not a genetician, then I will not have the complete understanding on every process, but that's why we have gatekeepers, reviewers, and other people involved in such a project. We don't do that alone. And I will look, okay, we have the first requirement here with the correct definition of specification. It did already 19 specification on this installation by the command line tool, and then it will say, okay, you need to use the CLI, you need to project you need to write gene and section summary tables, and you have some file to fill. And then when you go to this one, write gene and section summary tables, you will have shoal, because it's based on the requirement, write gene present summaries for organism and optionally section. Okay, and then to prove that its specification is correct, we have some acceptance criteria going out. Then it says it should do that. That it says this should enable that, this should reorder this, and does not require this. I will not go into detail because I didn't read it yet. It's a new project. I don't know anything about it, but I will just say, okay, where matching section, enable section. Okay, I will open this one, and this is an acceptance criterion. Acceptance criterion means that's the strongest pillar point between a requirement, a specification, and then the test process, the risk analysis, and everything that goes through, because at the moment I didn't ask for any implementation. Then we don't know, it's uncovered, it doesn't have test run, it's not proved that this acceptance criterion is working, but it's defined. And again, for who know about the process that I made for Polarion and other enterprise mirror things, for that, it can be directly injected into Jira, Polarion, and everywhere we can need it. I will try to find a more interesting, because this was more about the installation, but if we come back to the project, project user, okay, CLI, write gene section summary table, yeah, that was the same. Not very funny topic when we don't have this expertise, but yeah, I think this one is good. Extract, this from this and do thing and optional tree specification. That is probably a very nice word in the language of the specialist, but which means nothing in my language. Ubiquitous language has to be defined after between team and stakeholder and domain expert to make sure that everybody can understand everything. Then it should process the GeoBank, the GenBank here, sorry, to summarize Gen feature. And I don't know what it's supposed to do, but I know that we can already evaluate maybe some risk about it, because we have to implement that. We will have to create a specification. Then I will just check if there is no, okay, there is no specification at the moment. Is it done? Yeah, it's done. It says, okay, we have C6 requirement, 19 specification. Now I want to know, and that's a very theoretical analysis. Don't consider that as a project that I will manage that way, but just I will say generate the specification, was it a specification on this one? Sorry, no, the specification, that's it. Okay, the specification. To implement it and generate the risk analysis. We'll see after for the coverage. That's very quick way of doing it. That's just a demo to show how it can do the things. But here we will have a risk analysis. We can create risk manually. Everything is made to be able to be used manually. It's a data management software with a very good linking between things, but it doesn't mean it has to be used by AI, of course. It's used by manual operation. But every operation you can do here, LLM can do it because the MCP implemented is very strong. And the best advantage of using the LLM is that it can also use other MCP to access other topics in your company that are not already implemented via the MCP of the SDD. Because SDD give you a gateway to access already to your SAP, Polarion, Jira, GitHub, and every tool that you already use connected to your project. But we can use other things. We can use Playwright. We can use systems that are public MCP, allowing you to get documentation about some technology. Then we work with a concrete context. And that's an ecosystem to create, to have access to a lot of things. And honestly, in the scientific way, we have access to many things to understand documentation, and we can also leverage a RAG server to give you a semantic database about everything your company has ever written in the 30 last year. Let's see how it moves, because honestly, it takes time, but it's in minutes, not in weeks. That's the big advantage. But we get used to the speed, and we always finish by finding it slow. But there is again an add intent here. Then it will define why you want to do this, and then with a big semantic analysis behind, and then we will list specification and search project context and create 8 implementation specification. That will explain exactly how to implement the feature which is described, and that is probably or probably not, it depends how it is, already implemented in the software and how it has to be done. I never executed the software, and for the moment I'm working on the pure theory. And then there is a list of risks that were analyzed, and we will check them. And here on this requirement, we define that ad hoc parsing of GenBank text can miss feature, assign incorrect organism section, or associate sequence with wrong gene with input formatting varies, when input formatting varies. And as there is a mitigation, and there is a control verification. Jen said that the generated document compared to the output, then you have a manual check. And let's say that we will leverage this risk to create a first check. Then we'll say we will take this very precise risk or the scope around, and we'll say create a test protocol for humans based on this URL. You can give anything you want because the reference of the grid / requirement / this is there, and honestly it's very accurate because you have unique reference everywhere about that. Then we have this requirement that has no coverage, that for the moment we see that the acceptance criteria of this requirement are this, and this. Of course, everything has to be reviewed at every step, and that's where your team should be engaged and involved in the process of verification and control to check if all these things are just relevant, because you cannot have too much acceptance criteria except if they are counterproductive. Same for the risk. Too much risk analysis is never a problem. Too much test is never a problem. Instead, we prefer to have a large coverage that is blocking the delivery than a problem that avoid the correct use from the user. Then here we had this risk. We have this process, yeah, and that's taking time. Then maybe I can pause, because otherwise I will just talk and it can be annoying. Yeah, we have some priority, must should about the requirement, as we well know when we are in regulated industries, and we create a first test case. Then that's multi-step. We will create test case, which can be multi-step. The test case will be in test suite will be in test protocol, and the test protocol can contain multiple test suite, but a test suite can also be referred in multiple test protocol. For example, when you make an OQ, a FATSAT, or a document that is very specific, you can include test in it, and then all tests are in the test protocol for commissioning, but all tests doesn't have to be in an OQ, because it depends on what the client wants, when the client is ready to pay for. And you can generate these documents directly from the software. Then here we will certainly have already on the project, if I check here, then now we have 7 requirements, and we start to have test protocol coming, not ready yet. Let's say that on the, which one was it? That was my requirement. I think that was this one, or that's this one. No, that's this one. Okay, then that's the one with the risk, and there is no test yet because it didn't finish the production of the test. It will also generate, because we have a structure of acceptance criteria going down from the specification, it will create the test protocol that we can audit and put in our formal validation, but it will also create automatic test that does exactly the same process. Then you can be sure that every commit on your project will run all tests that you consider important for your acceptance criteria for the project range, for the project scope. Then here we start to have the test. But this test, when they arrive to a human, you can be sure that the version that you give to them was already automatically tested and is working. Then the only ambiguity or question that can happen is, are the tests relevant? And that's why we have a complete test review with dry run, process and protocol to execute, to make sure everything goes well. And if we look now on the project itself, we should have a test protocol. It's not yet there. I'm not happy, it's too slow. I will check in the test case. Yeah, in the test case, I have already a list appearing here with the step, and it says, okay, prepare clean working directory and do that, and then do that, and then do that, and you should have this result. This is the expected result, expected result, expected result. And when you have all this, you have a test that works correctly. But we have also a test suite and the test suite is exactly the group of how things should be aligned. But what I want to see is a complete test protocol, because if I don't have a test protocol, it's less presentable. Then create a test protocol including all these test suites. That's stupid because there is only one test suite, but whatever. That's just a way to prove how it's working. And because of the template which I use at the moment that are set on intellectual property of one of the clients I'm working with this project, I will not show you the document, but it generates the complete PDF or document that you can put in your document management system for validation, with a revision number, with everything we need for the traceability, and that makes QA very happy because the document is clean at the first time. Protocol release chain yet? Yeah, there is no protocol release because we never built the project. And then yeah, we add a TPO, we create a test protocol and observation. We list the test suite, then we can go to the project, we link to TPO to parts to test suite and TPO, and that's it. That will be sufficient to have a result, which should already be here. Then we have a genome extract test protocol. We go here and we see what are the test suite, what are the test case, and the test is estimated to take 1 hour and 43 minutes to be executed by a human. Then based on that we can download and generate DOCX, RTF, which can be useful for certain system, PDF or other system. The new UI is much better, but I was showing you this in a very quick demo. Then I'm open for any question about this process of testing and creating the test protocol. Just maybe one more thing that's very important. When we have a test protocol, we can start an execution session here. Then we say, okay, we don't have a version, but the version is, let's say, 0.22. That's what I see in the 0.2.2, sorry. Let's respect the author of this product. Maybe I will push back my contribution for the GitHub project, because if it can help him, I will give him all the documentation maybe he needs. That's moving on, that's pushing science further. And then start session. Then this test protocol, I will be able to execute it. I put everything that pass, fail, remark, comment, and comment the test itself. And because I'm a quality manager and it's a draft, I'm able to change the test itself. Then if I say, okay, this is a misspelling, or this test is not well written and I don't understand what it says, then I can add some step. I can go there and say, I want to add step before, add step after, move test, move to another test suite, and organize the process. And when it will be, let's say, failed, for example, then I will save my test run, and it will be failed, and it will be ongoing. Then everything can fail, and that will show, I hope it doesn't fail, because of course it's based on the code and normally it should be okay. But when it's failed, I have this test suite failed, that this test case failed, and then I can see where I am in the test, and I can stop it, go for lunch, come back. I will have my session open. When I go to home page, I will arrive on this test because it says, oh, you have this to finish. And when I go back to test protocol, I will have a complete progress bar of that. And in the test protocol list, I will have a complete view of what I have to do and what is the complete estimated time to finish the whole validation process for this version, which again I never built and I don't know anything about. But still, this project can be used as a demo. If you want to know a little more about it, don't hesitate to ask. I will be very open to respond any question about all this process. Thank you for watching, and the next course will come soon.